Hey folks, Thom Rainer here. I am so incredibly enthused that Belay is the founding sponsor of the Church Answers podcast. We've always had a great relationship with Belay, and now we have the opportunity to work with them even more closely in this brand new Church Answers podcast. Now, I'm going to say a few things about Belay, but I want you to hear this personally from me, from Thom Rainer. I have used Belay for many, many years. In fact, I even used them before they were called Belay. I'm not going to give you the other name of their company before then. And what I mean is we have found these type of workers to be incredibly effective, incredibly relational, and Belay takes care of everything. You need an executive assistant, and they'll provide it for you. You need a bookkeeper, they'll provide it. They become a member of your team in many ways, but Belay is doing all of the heavy lifting. You know, many of you leaders, there's a moment in your personal and professional life where you realize that you may be in your own way. You know, you need help. Let Belay come in. Delegating it to them. It may seem intimidating, especially if you don't know how they can do so. You don't have to worry about reading every email, scheduling every call, responding to every request. You have more time, more energy to work on the things that move the business forward, and you can achieve your big goals both personally and professionally. So I want to just say with a loud acclamation, welcome, Belay. And let me just encourage you. You've got to get this resource. You've got to get this resource. It's free. And it's called Delegate to Elevate. You pastors and leaders and business leaders, incredible resource to talk about how to do delegation. Here's how you get it. It's in the show notes, but belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer, ThomRainer. So start trusting your team more. Stop diluting your efforts. Empower yourself to courageously focus on your strengths and delegate your weaknesses. In no time, you'll do what you're supposed to do. Lead your church effectively, or if you're in a business, growing your business. Once again, we welcome Belay as the founding sponsor. And once again, get that downloadable at belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer. Thom, what was one of the most humorous things that happened to you as a pastor? There's a long list. I encourage you to go back and listen to a previous podcast number 2, where I kind of messed up in a funeral. Now, podcast number 6, what I did when my pants split when I was preaching. Just a reminder, I won't keep saying this, but while we're still new, while this is a new podcast, we release 3 a week. And each of them are right at 10 minutes. We don't want to go over 10 minutes. And we want to have just a nugget or 2 for you to take away. You can listen to all 3 of them. We make 3 available every week. Or you just may say, I only want to take 10 minutes and listen to this one or watch this one. That's fine. But I hope you get the word out. Continue to tell people about this podcast. Please give us ratings and reviews, and maybe subscribe to us at YouTube, because we're going to be doing more and more at YouTube. It would be great if we could have a healthy subscription audience there. So please do that. Okay, this one is a tough one. At least it was at the time. What I did when my pants split when I was preaching. All of you pastors have stories. I mean, if it was recorded in a streaming sermon, it's all over the internet now. I mean, I've seen some things that I've been rolling over laughing. You know what I'm grateful for among so many things? I am grateful that when I was a pastor, there were no streaming sermons. I'm grateful that there was not the widespread availability of internet. In fact, there wasn't even the existence of commercial internet until my 4th and last church, and it was very, very limited. So I'm so glad for that. I mean, I can just think of the things that would have been recorded for the rest of creation if I had it recorded and then disseminated to the internet. I'm so glad. In my first 3 churches, though, no internet. 4th church, we didn't record anything for dissemination on the internet. We still had cassette ministries. I've talked about that in the past as well. So what is this episode 6 about? Well, just let me remind you one more time. We've given you 3 episodes every week. So now the new release episodes are 4, 5, and 6. All of them 10 minutes. Listen to 1, listen to 2, listen to all 3. Hope you do the latter. What did I do when my pants split when I was preaching? Let me give the context again. Rural church, same church where I kissed the deceased. Okay, same church. Small rural church, 7 members. Our family of four, Jess, my youngest son, was not born yet. I'd never been a pastor, didn't come from a line of pastors. In fact, there was no one in my genealogy that I can find as far as ancestors.com goes that was a pastor. None. I was the first one. So I didn't have anybody to mentor me. Those aren't excuses. I'm just giving you context, okay? I mean, my guess is even if I had mentors, I would have done a lot of stupid things. And I don't know how I could have avoided this one. Now, the context was also this. These were the days when the expectation was that you wore a suit while you were preaching, okay? I had one suit to my name. My family and I were struggling like many. I was a seminary student, and I worked part-time at a bank, and I was a full-time seminary student, and then I worked for this church, this small rural church. And so my earnings, my wife was staying home with two, and then it became three kids. My earnings were primarily from the bank. The church paid me $50 a week, for which I was grateful, but my earnings came primarily from the bank where I worked 30 hours a week. And so the context is materially, I did not have much. I was a blessed man, but our family did not have much. And so we could not afford new clothes. Our clothes were, we would get excited when we could go to a consignment shop and find some clothes that were decent for me. I had one suit. I wore that suit week after week after week preaching. I am so glad that the rural community, they didn't ever say anything about, aren't you going to ever change your suit? They just accepted me for who I was. And I just wore that same suit. I remember it well, dark blue. And I literally wore that suit out. When it would become threadbare, I'd clip the threads. And when the cloth would become a little bit lighter than it should be, I would just try to cover it with my coat. In this particular case, I was not looking at what was happening in the rear seam of my pants. If I had looked, I would have noticed how thin it was, and I would have noticed that the seam was at risk. On this particular occasion, I was preaching. I had my coat on, and while I was preaching, my pants split. It split so far that I think it was 6 inches long, but it could have been longer. But there were 2 or 3 inches that were evident beneath the coat that I was hoping would cover it. I felt the pants split. I knew that that was not the wind of the Holy Spirit that I was feeling. That was the wind going into my pants. I got it. And so my hope was that nobody noticed. They did. We had a small choir, and they all started chuckling, all 3 or 4 of them. We had about 20 or 25 by this time in the church, and maybe 5 choir members, and they started chuckling. I knew at that moment that I had been caught, not with my pants down, but with my pants split. Once again, not a minor split. The pants were so thin that it basically provided a major doorway that anyone could see if they were behind me. I couldn't do anything about the chuckling. In fact, one of the choir members was laughing so hard that I had to explain to the congregation what was going on. So what I did was I said, hey folks, my pants just split big time. And the choir just finally, most of them were trying to withhold their laughter. They weren't doing a very good job, but they just let it go in an eruption of laughter. The rest of the few people in the congregation started laughing as well. Now, at this point, I was only about 10 minutes through my sermon. Perhaps I just should have said, let's go home, because I know you can't be focused at all on this. But on this particular occasion, the first thing I did was acknowledge what had happened. Might as well. Everybody knew about it. They were laughing behind me. I asked the choir to please leave the choir loft and go to the pews like everybody else. I then continued to preach my sermon, still feeling the wind of the fresh air coming into the back of my pants. I preached that sermon, got it done. I don't know if anybody paid any attention at that point, because I saw snickering and laughter and smiles, but I got through the sermon. And then when it was time for the sermon to be over, I told the people I was going to take my coat off. I was going to tie the coat around my waist so that it could go all the way down to where the split had occurred. I don't know if there are any lessons to this. I just wanted to tell you that there are many times that the unexpected happens when we're preaching. I don't have any particular lesson except in this one. I had to acknowledge it because there were some who were having a great time watching the great white flag wave behind me. And I acknowledged it, tried to get through the sermon. I don't know if that's the best thing to do. And then I put it coat over me so it would not be seen anymore. Nothing particular. I just wanted to tell you that story. I'll be telling you those stories from time to time, but not a whole lot. We'll be finding more nuggets. So now you have episodes 4, 5, and 6 to listen or view. Please do so. And we'll be back next week with 3 new episodes. Thom Rainer back with you. Before we leave this podcast, to just thank again Belay for being the founding sponsor of the Church Answers podcast. Hear me very well. I said it at the beginning. I'm going to say it at the end. We have used Belay at Church Answers for several years. We've had incredible workers that they have sent us, and Belay takes care of everything. They take care of paying them. They take care of all of the what would be paperwork now, e-work. They take care of it all, and you are free to do the things that you need to be doing as a pastor, as a business leader. So go to Belay. Go to belaysolutions.com and do this. Go to belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer. That's ThomRainer. When you go to Thom Rainer, don't forget the H in Tom. And get this download. It is incredible. Delegate to elevate. I can just promise you with this download, you'll get new insights of how to free yourself to do the things you love to do the most. Thank you, Belay. Thank you for being who you are. Go to that download, belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer, ThomRainer.